Just so you know, thank you so much again for coming to this evening event. Our main attraction here, as the title reads, is to meet and greet with Corey Stewart, who's going to run for U.S. Senate. Yeah. And yes, he is in the house. So, Corey, do me a big favor and stand up so everyone recognizes who you are. Yeah. I'm a little bit jealous because hopefully before the end of this evening, I'll get one of those fancy ties that he's wearing.
Can't have mine.
Oh, okay. You're thinking. All right, so let me get it going. So first thing first, let's go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. And Daniel is going to lead us off.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Amen.
All right, so please stand and let's continue on with the national anthem. Please continue to stand and listen to the Republic of Vietnam anthem.
Này công dân ơi, quốc gia đến ngày giải phóng, đồng lòng cùng mình hy sinh những gì non sông, vì tương lai quốc dân cùng sống và quên thân, làm sao cho núi sông từ nay luôn vững bền, tự cho thầy thầy trên lưng cao, thu nước về màu đào thêm bao, nói rằng nước biên phải cần giải quyết người công dân lao đứng bền tâm trí cùng tráng quyết chiến đấu làm ra bao lần vang tiếng người nước nam cho đến muôn đời. Công dân ơi, máu yên thân dưới đầu, công dân ơi, máu làm cho khói lửa hoa cơn tàn phá vẽ hoa ngàn dòng dâng danh nghìn năm dòng dòng lá thơm.
All right, good. Thank you. To continue on, the following is a minute of silence to remember our fallen heroes, both Americans and Vietnamese, who have given their lives for the cause of freedom, democracy, and human rights in Vietnam and other countries. This is also in remembrance of the millions of unborn babies whose lives were ended by abortion. The minute of silence begins. Thank you. Thank you. This concludes the open ceremony. Please have a seat. Thank you. All right, so why don't we go ahead and kick it off and have Miss Ann Trudeau, who is the organizer for this event and many other events that we have. So please give her a very warm... Oh, come on. You can do better than this, right?
Thank you, Matt. Good evening, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking your time to come today for the dinner meet and greet with U.S. Senate candidate Corey Stewart. First, I would like to remind everybody, I think everybody knows, but we only have about 3 weeks before the very important midterm election in November 6th. So I hope everybody is ready to get out the vote and help our candidates. And then also tomorrow is the last day to register to vote. So if you know anyone who has not registered, please remind them. Thank you. And we will start with the dinner. And then after the dinner, we'll have like several guest speakers from the Vietnamese community, from the pro-life organization, and also from the candidate for this coming November. So let's enjoy dinner first. Thank you.
While dinner is being served, let me just go run through the program so you get an idea of what's going on. All right. So besides our distinguished guest, our next senator for the Commonwealth of Virginia, Corey Stewart, we're also fortunate or blessed to have another candidate who's running for Congress, and that is Mr. Jeff Dove. Please stand up. Jeff is going to be speaking as he's number 8 on the list. He's running for Congress.
Yeah, number 8.
We saved him, you know, the best for last here, right? So he's running for the Congress in the 11th Congressional District against Mr. Conley.
Yeah.
Don't
boo vote, right?
All right, don't boo vote, right? All right, so number 1 on the list is Miss Truc Nguyen Nguyen, who is also the president of the Vietnamese Women's Association of Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. Okay, so number 2 is our new elected president of the Vietnamese community in Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, Mr. Bobby Lee or Bobby Lee. Okay. Yes. And then number 3 on the list is Mr. Tim Hannigan. He's the chairman of the Fairfax County Republican Committee, who's also my boss. Yeah. And number 4 is Miss Lori Casio, and she is the Virginia Regional Coordinator for Student for Life of America, both in Commonwealth of Virginia and West Virginia at this point. So it's going to be the entire country next month. That's not cool. All right, and then Miss Andrea Del Vecchio is going to introduce Miss Terry Beatley. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. She's the president of the pro-life organization, the Hosea Initiative, which should be pretty exciting. And that's an organization that has not been, in my personal opinion, it's not been publicized well in the minority or the Asian community, and we'd love to hear your speech about that. And then Miss Alan Butler Short, who is the president of the VA Women for Trump. She's going to say a few words, and then she is the key person who's going to introduce our main man for the event, Mr. Corey Stewart. And then, of course, we save Mr. Jeff Dove for last. So, all right, so enjoy your dinner, and we'll get the program started as we see how it fits into the 9 o'clock schedule. Thank you so much. first speaker is Miss Truc Nguyen Nguyen, or Miss Truc Brown. And she's going to come up. Thank you so much. And she's the president of the Vietnamese Women's Association of the Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. And here she is. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, our distinguished guests. On behalf of the Vietnamese Women's Association of Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, we are honored to welcome you this evening, and we greatly thank you for braving this unpleasant weather to come and support Mr. Corey Stewart, the chairman at large of the Prince William County Board of Supervisors and the Republican nominee for the Virginia U.S. Senate. Thank you. We support Corey Stewart for the following reasons. He has pledged to fight against the serious violations of human rights here and abroad. He will help to push back communist Chinese invasion of our motherland, Vietnam. He will help us push for the right to life of the helpless, most innocent, unborn little people in the womb. He will help uphold our forefathers' moral values to make the U.S. great again. Thank you. Corey Stewart has actually cut spending and cut taxes. He doesn't just talk about small government, he walks the walk. He also cut violent crime in his county by almost half. He cut crime by turning illegal immigrants over to federal authorities. Thank you so much.
Let me move forward on our next speaker is Mr. Bobby Lee, or Liebau, right? He's going to spend a couple minutes to talk about the new activities and the initiatives that's going on right now. Mr. Bobby Lee.
Thank you, Matt. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I take it everybody's enjoying a nice dinner right now. And thank you, Antu, though, for putting this event together, and Matt and everybody else that's involved. And as you know, I'm the new president of the Vietnamese community. Woo! Yes, thank you. And the youngest ever. The reason why I wanted to run for the presidency of the Vietnamese community is, number one, I want to get all the Vietnamese to go out and vote. Okay, and that's very important because we come from a country that's suppressed. We don't have democracy. Here we do. So that's why we as Vietnamese Americans have to do our civic duty and go out and vote and support your candidate, Mr. Corey Stewart, and be able to not just go out to vote on your own. Like, she's holding her phone right now. She's got probably a couple hundred contacts on her phone. We got a couple more days to call everybody and tell them, you know what? This is the new initiative. The Vietnamese people are rallying, and we all need to come out and vote. Can everybody do that? Yes, raise your hands. So as part of the initiative, we've done a few things. We partner with an organization called PPSOS. And we have a facility where anybody, especially Vietnamese Americans, can go from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and register to vote. The location is 6066 Leesburg Pike, Suite 100. And we're going to be doing a lot more of this. We're going to have workshops as to explain or show the Vietnamese people why they need to vote. Not just to tell them to vote, but why. So for the next 2 years of my term, I hope that we can get a higher percentage of our community to go out to vote and do our civic duty as patriots to the United States. And of course, I can only be successful if I have all of your support. So all I ask for you tonight is to get into your phone, call all your family, and you got a few days left to register, but more importantly, to go out and vote on November 6th. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Bobby. So this is wonderful. I mean, as citizens, this is our rights to vote. I mean, this is our time, right? We complain about it, we say, hey, what's going on, and what have you, vote. This is how you change the dynamic. So, moving along quickly, I'm going to invite Mr. Tim Hannigan, our chairman of the Fairfax County Republican Committee, to say a few words about. Right! Give me hands.
Thank you very much, Matt, and thanks to Ann for her great work in organizing these activities, and for Matt emceeing it, and so many other people for taking time to come out here and to promote and advocate for Corey Stewart. If you want lower taxes, then vote for Corey Stewart. If you want fewer regulations, vote for Corey Stewart. If you want to protect our borders and reestablish United States sovereignty, vote for Corey Stewart. And I could go on and on and on, differentiating Corey Stewart from his opponent, the dreaded Senator Kane. But I'm not going to do that. I want to emphasize to everybody what I see as a former Marine in Corey Stewart. Number one, he's a fighter. He will fight for our interests. He is unafraid of standing up against the Democrats, calling them out for what they are, showing to the world just what we saw over the last couple of weeks with the efforts made by the Democrats to derail Judge Kavanaugh, now Justice Kavanaugh. And Corey Stewart is somebody who's going to stand up for what is right. He will stand up for all of us. And so the key point here is what Bobby just said. We need to come out, all of us, and vote for Corey Stewart on November 6th. And beyond that, we have to reach our neighbors, our friends, and bring them out to vote. So please, let's all of us pledge to act on that. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you so much, Chairman. All right, so it's a great story. And for me, I know Corey for a very long time. I'm a big supporter of his. My personal story about him, and it all boils down to about before President Trump became president, and we chat, and it all boils down to two things: peace and prosperity. That's what we're looking for, right? And Corey believes it, understands it, lived it, right? And actually will advocate for it. So moving forward to our next speaker is Ms. Lori Casio, who is the Virginia Regional Coordinator for Student for Life of America. And she was kindly giving me her bio, so I'm going to read it verbatimly, very verbatim here. So Lori Casio is the Virginia Regional Coordinator Director. She knows that without empowering the upcoming pro-life generation with knowledge and truth to support the biblical worldview, the tragedy of abortion will not change. In her senior year in high school, Lori started a Student for Life club. Okay? When she filed the paperwork to become an official club, the principal refused to sign the papers. Okay? Yeah, it's actually, that's the way things are in Fairfax County school system, unfortunately. She kept pushing forward, and as she did, the mission of empowering women and students grew. Her persistence paid off, and over 5 years later, the club is still running at her public high school. So, all right, Lori, without further ado, Ms. Cassidy.
Thank you. Hello, friends. So like he said, I'm the Virginia's Regional Coordinator for Students for Life of America. And I'm sure you've seen or heard about Students for Life before. Do you know those black I am the pro-life generation signs? They're in the back of the room. They're all over the news, all over the March for Life. That's Students for Life. We're the largest national pro-life youth nonprofit in America. And I'm blessed to be basically the pro-life missionary in Virginia and also in West Virginia. We invented the word Virginias just for me, and I'm the Virginias coordinator. Spell check doesn't like it, but we'll make it work. And there are people like me all across the country who mentor and train college leaders and high school pro-life leaders and even middle school leaders. We just launched our middle school program, and we help out students in our particular states. So I'm one of those people. I am blessed to have this job, as I went from leading a pro-life club in high school to college at George Mason University, where I studied nonprofit administration because I knew this is what I wanted to do. And of course, they didn't have a pro-life major. You'll have to work on it. But now I'm here. I mentor and train and oversee over 60 pro-life organizations that youth lead in West Virginia and Virginia. So I'm just blessed to see that grow. And to tell you guys a little bit more about what I do and kind of treat you like my students and give you a couple cool facts that you can take with you when you are educating your peers, your friends, your neighbors, and telling them to go out and vote. So I wanted to talk about Planned Parenthood, the big Planned Parenthood. It's one of the things that fires me up the most. I love talking about Planned Parenthood. If you don't know already, they are the nation's largest abortion provider. And you've probably seen all over the news, there's all kinds of scandals, and they cover it up, and they just keep going, and we keep giving them money. We, when we pay taxes, are giving them money. We've given them over $500 million each and every year, and it's absolutely shocking. So, I want to test your knowledge and see how much you know. Just a cheesy little game real quick. So, have you ever played Two Truths and a Lie? You introduce yourself to your friends, you tell them 2 truths and 1 lie, and they guess which one's the lie. So I have actually 6 truths, and you have to find the 1 lie. Okay, here we go. Number 1, Planned Parenthood have closed due to unsanitary conditions and malpractice. Number 2, Planned Parenthood is receiving more money every single year. However, they're serving less clients every year and closing more facilities every year. You guys are on the roll. Number 3, Planned Parenthood has been caught aiding sex traffickers. True. Planned Parenthood has been caught allowing sex-selective abortions, which means if you're having a girl, for example, and you really wanted a boy, they'll cover it up and say, don't tell me that's the real reason. True. Planned Parenthood makes it easy for minor clients to get abortions without their parents knowing. True. Planned Parenthood has performed abortion on dogs. True. You found it, but I'll still read my last one. 7. Planned Parenthood spent $30 million on Hillary Clinton's failed campaign.
Just that?
I'm sure they spend more than that. But that's at least what they reported. But yes, you caught the lie. Planned Parenthood does not do abortions on dogs. Although rumor has it somewhere in Students for Life's old files, one of our staff members went undercover with a pregnant chihuahua and talked to them, and they said, sweetie, you don't want your chihuahua to have an abortion. They're having puppies. Puppies are good. Now just substitute that for the word babies. They're having babies. Babies are good. If only they would say that. So yes, if that does not shock you, and I'm sure it shocks all of you that all 6 of those other things I said were true, if that's not reason enough to not support Planned Parenthood, I don't know what is. But when I'm out at college campuses and I'm outreaching, for example, this spring I was out on college campuses with this really neat display called the We Don't Need Planned Parenthood Tour. and I traveled all over Virginia and West Virginia and talked to just random students about this and mentored the pro-life students there to learn how to talk about it. And for some reason, all of these terrible things, all of these malpractice things, these things with unsanitary conditions, they're hurting women, for some reason that was never enough. It's the craziest thing in my mind. So I want to tell you a quick story. When I was at the University of Richmond, a student came up to me, and none of the other students in the pro-life club wanted to talk to him. So I thought, this is weird. They've been doing a great job. I trained them, but I'll take this one. So I talked to this student. We walked through the display. And at the end of the display, I give him a little fake dollar bill, and he puts the dollar bill in the Planned Parenthood jar or the other health center's jar. And in the end, he didn't know what to do. He ended up cutting his money in half and putting it in other health center's jar and Planned Parenthood's jar. He walked away, and the students, their jaws were on the ground. And I asked, what's wrong? That was great. We convinced him to change his mind a little bit. And they said, Laura, you just spoke with the most liberal student on campus. We didn't want to talk to him, but you just convinced him that Planned Parenthood shouldn't get all of the funding they get. So I want to tell you the reasoning that convinced him that Planned Parenthood wasn't worth funding, because for some reason, again, all of those crazy things I read to you before sometimes are not enough for people. What I hear is that Planned Parenthood is necessary for women's health care all the time. And I just want to say it's definitely not. Like I said before in the True Truth or Lie game, they are serving less clients every year. They used to serve over 3 million clients. Now they're down to 2.4 million clients. And if you do the math, that's less than 90, sorry, math is hard, but 98% of women in America who are the age that they serve don't walk into Planned Parenthood in a given year. That's insane. And that's just looking at the U.S. Census for women ages 15 to 35, which again, this is who they serve. That's not even including men. They claim to serve men, and 11% of their clients are men. So that's being generous, saying that 98% of women will never step foot in their facility in a given year. So the argument that convinced this most liberal student at the University of Richmond was we were comparing federally qualified health centers to Planned Parenthood. And this is what's been going up in bills and things through our government, is that, hey, we don't need to fund Planned Parenthood, we should fund other places that can do more for women and their entire families. And for some reason it keeps getting shot down. But I want to inform you again about this so that we can hopefully get it passed and defund Planned Parenthood. So, federally qualified health centers are networks of health centers across America that serve patients, families, women for free, whether they can afford it or not, and they have all of the same service as Planned Parenthood except abortion, and so much more. They even have mammograms, which I think Planned Parenthood should have used that $30 million from Hillary to install mammogram machines, but they didn't. They have mammograms, they have children's dental care, they have therapy, they have everything from mental to children to adults, you name it. So I talked to this student about, hey, our tax dollars could go a lot farther if these centers were more supported. And then, if you didn't know already, I'm from Charlestown, West Virginia, actually. So I came a little ways. It's not too far, but by Harpers Ferry. And by me and by my whole area, I can look at a map and see that Planned Parenthood is hours and hours away. And that's the case for most people. These centers are in our neighborhood, so it's not just better for the fact that Planned Parenthood is terrible, it's better for the local women who can't drive very far. And these centers are good for our local economies. They can serve the poor in our area without having to drive so far. So, let's see. Planned Parenthood, like I said, they serve 2.4 million patients, and these centers serve 20 million patients across America. That's amazing. And there are 13,000 of these facilities across the nation. Guess how many Planned Parenthoods there are? I'll give you a hint. It's a very demonic number.
666.
Yes, there's about 666 Planned Parenthoods. And the number is constantly going down. I think it was 665 on their annual report. So that's an easy number to remember. So basically, I talked to this student about, hey, all 50 states have these low-cost health centers. They outnumber Planned Parenthood 20-1. I want women to be able to get care at a place that doesn't kill children. They have better choices. They're right around the corner. And they don't have to go far to see them. There are so much better options in Planned Parenthood for women's health care, and most women are already going to these places for our health care. So I hope that helped you a little bit. I hope next time you give them all these crazy reasons about how Planned Parenthood should close, you can help them answer this question. Do we really need Planned Parenthood? Let's sit down and look at our map. Let's look at the health centers in our community. And you can look up these specific ones on getyourcare.org. It's a website that Students for Life and Susan B. Anthony Liss and Alliance Defending Freedom and a ton of other pro-life organizations put together. You can find these health centers. You can serve women. We don't want women to be not taken care of, but they paint this image of us, and that's how they're able to keep Planned Parenthoods funded. So I think if we keep this narrative up and ask that question, do we need them? 98% of women don't go to them in a year. We have a good chance of convincing our neighbors who may be voting how we don't want them to vote to say, hey, let's relook at this issue and change our mind on it. So in closing, I hope this helped. And I want to encourage everyone here to vote pro-life in a couple weeks. And I think you all know who to vote for. There we go. That was easy. And I want to end with a quote from Planned Parenthood's annual report recently. They said, Congress and this administration will try again to defund Planned Parenthood. Yes, we will. Let's prove their annual report correct and let's actually do it. All right.
Thank you so much. Just a quick comment, right? So when you hear some of these very nice initiative or programs, Planned Parenthood, I mean, there's no planning involved, right? And there's no parenthood involved. It's actually, you're deferring from being a parent, essentially, right? When you hear about, net neutrality, there's no neutrality in this network, right? So, and by the way, the new word for those who live in Fairfax County, another scary word, and please look this up, is one Fairfax. Okay, so for those who know what I'm talking about, and if you don't know, please look it up. When it's a very nice word and message, there could be evil intent behind it. All right, so be careful there. All right, so to move forward for the next speaker, I'm actually having my friend here, Miss Andrea DeVecchio, who's going to introduce Miss Terry Lately.
Thank you.
Andrea.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. I always love coming here. It's such a beautiful place, and the food is great, so thank you for hosting us. Thank you for Ann, who is such a wonderful pro-life activist. She inspired us to come tonight, so we thank Ann. She's a great role model. So I am a local pro-life activist. I pray out in front of the abortion mills. I go down in front of the Planned Parenthood in D.C. and pray there. And we can change hearts and minds. But we need to be there. We need to show up. We need to witness to the sanctity of life. And I am here tonight to introduce you to an amazing woman who has been on a journey of witnessing and educating about the sanctity of life, how important the life issue is. It forms the basis of one of our basic rights from God, is the right to life. And this woman started her journey. She met the man who was known as the abortion king, Dr. Bernard Nathanson, and he charged her with a mission, a very important mission, to to go out and teach America the truth about how he deceived this country into accepting abortion and calling abortion health care. Despicable. But he had a change of heart through the beauty of science and the beauty of our Lord, and he became pro-life. And so Terry Beatley is an amazing woman who's been traveling the country. She was one of the keynote speakers at the Big Walk for Life out in San Francisco. She's been recently speaking in Texas, in Florida. She just got back from Iowa. She's spreading the news about how important it is for us to stand for life. It is a winning issue. We have to help the campaigns and the candidates understand that people are becoming pro-life. They're seeing the truth. So without further ado, I bring you up Terry Beatley.
Good evening. Are you ready to win on life? Yes. Do you agree with me that life leads? Yes. Life leads. There's no reason why any candidate anywhere ever has to stifle the life message. So before I set up the nonprofit organization Jose Initiative, I happened to move to Fredericksburg, Virginia, and that happened to be the home of Senator Ed Houck. Senator Ed Houck had been a Virginia senator for 28 years. Every 4 years, the people in that district kept voting him back in. He had a 5,000 to a 6,000 vote lead. And this man had sold out to the abortion industry 28 years prior to me moving to Fredericksburg. And I thought, this is crazy. Because like, why do these people keep voting him back into the Virginia Senate when he votes to allow minor girls to have abortions and to take the abortion pill without parental consent or knowledge? He allows minor girls to go on to birth control without parental consent or knowledge. He voted for In God We Trust to be taken off of school walls. And he fully supported Planned Parenthood. And I thought, what's missing is the education. And so this began a journey of showing that people will change their hearts and minds when they have the education, when they have the knowledge. So about, I don't know, it was like 6 months or a year prior to the defeat of Senator Ed Houck, I had the rare opportunity of interviewing Dr. Bernard Nathanson. So we were talking about Planned Parenthood. Dr. Nathanson trained Planned Parenthood on how to kill babies in the womb. Okay, this happened all up in New York. So for 2 years, Dr. Nathanson trained Planned Parenthood. And interestingly, on Planned Parenthood, what many people don't realize is that as late as 1965, Planned Parenthood in their world population leaflet warned women not to have abortions. This is Planned Parenthood. Warning American women and women of the world not to have abortions because they can make you sterile so that you can't have a baby when you want one. And Planned Parenthood let the women know that abortion takes the life of a human being. And yes, America, I don't know, I'm on real-time FaceTime, but that was Planned Parenthood, 1965. So now we're billions of dollars later. So what Dr. Bernard Nathanson wanted you and all of America to know, and particularly every woman, was the 8-point strategy of how he deceived our country with a lie that abortion is women's health care. So the father of America's industry of abortion, who trained Planned Parenthood on how to do abortions, admitted that he lied to American women, he lied to the judges, he lied to the court legislators, he lied to the clergy, he lied to women, he lied to mothers and fathers, and he unleashed the abortion monster onto our country. And I don't know how many people out there are people of faith, but I know what the Word of God says. And it says that righteousness, the country has to have righteousness. Righteousness exalts a nation. So how many babies have we lost? Somebody shout it out. 60 million human lives. Now I'm going to show you two things, two tools, because I'm about winning on life. Life leads. If we expect God to bless our nation, we better bless God and show God that we want to honor what He gives us, and those are the babies in the womb. Right? Are you with me? Do you agree? All right. Now, one of the ways we are going to do it, it's with this little book right here. It's a little booklet. I have 200 of them back there. Thing costs $3. This teaches you the 8-point strategy in very simple language. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3, all the way through 8. How Dr. Nathanson deceived our country with the lie that abortion is women's health care. Now, I don't have the time to teach it. I want everybody to get one. Okay, it's only $3. Now, why is this so important? I'm going to give you an example. The other day, I had to travel to Iowa, and I thought, well, I'm 10 pounds too heavy, so time to buy some new clothes. So I went into the clothing store, and the lady said, oh, you're speaking. What are you speaking on? Well, I knew she was of liberal mindset, and I thought, well, this will be interesting. And I said, well, I'm speaking on the life issue. And she said, oh, you mean anti-abortion? And I said, well, no, pro-woman, pro-baby. And she said, oh, I like the sound of that. She said, I'm for the babies too. And I said, well, good, we've got something in common. Pro-woman, pro-baby. And she said, well, what do you talk about? And I said, well, I talk about the 8-point strategy of how a man by the name of Dr. Bernard Nathanson deceived our entire nation with the lie that abortion is women's health care. He would give false statistics and false facts to the media. And she said, well, what kind of false facts? And I said, well, back then, when abortion was illegal, he would tell the media, and let's just pretend you were all the media, and I'm Dr. Bernard Nathanson, an OBGYN. And he would tell you, the media, that 60% of Americans want abortion on demand legalized. And the media would go and report that. And she said, well, what was the real number? And I said, well, the real number was only 0.5% of Americans wanted abortion on demand legalized. So was that an audacious lie? So if they're that bold with lies, why can we not be double bold with the truth, right? Right? Let me tell you one other lie that he would tell Americans. He would tell the media, and this is before internet, so it would be reported on radio, in print, magazines and newspapers, and on 6 o'clock news and 11 o'clock news. Okay? He would say that we have an epidemic on our hands. 1 million women a year are having back alley abortions, and 5,000 to 10,000 women a year are dying. Doesn't that sound horrible? Okay, back alley abortions, 1 million. Well, the real numbers was at the high side, there were 100,000 illegal abortions, not 1 million. And there were not 10,000 women dying. They were on the high side, it was about 200. So were his lies audacious? They were huge. So the entire industry of killing babies, it's a $1 billion industry, people. It's a $1 billion industry of killing America's babies and lying to women. So this lady at the clothing store said, this is terrible. I had no idea about all these lies. And then and she said, maybe you can come back to the community and teach all of my friends. And I know most of her friends are very liberal-minded friends. And I said, absolutely, let's do this. So these are tools. I fully believe this, that, you know, Hosea 4:6 says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. We need people to get the knowledge. We don't need more arguments, more fights, more name blaming and all this. We need to love other people with the truth, right? And if we can love other people with truth, I would love for someone of Vietnamese heritage, translate this into Vietnamese for me and get it out to your community. Somebody, do it. Somebody can do this probably in 30 minutes, translate that to Vietnamese. And let's take back our country. And, you know, righteousness exalts a nation. We have to choose righteousness, and God will exalt our nation. We don't want to, we remember those days, right? And what it was like. So let's choose life. Let's love people with the truth. Get your little booklets, and then stand firm on life. And let's make sure the real pro-life candidates win.
Do we know who's a pro-life candidate that's running right now? Yeah, Corey Stewart and Jeff Dove. So real quick, before we move on and have Alice introduce Corey and have him come up here, and then Jeff Dove. Thank you so much for all the speakers. It's very educational. And by the way, we will translate that to English, from English to Vietnamese. All right? So that will be done. All right. So with that in mind, so let's move on to the next topic. So I'm going to ask Miss Alice Butler Short to come up and help me introduce Mr. Corey Stewart.
Okay, do we have any Virginia Women for Corey here tonight? And Virginia Women for Trump, right? So Corey, we're back to where we started. I always say that the reason that I get to introduce Corey is that apart from his wife, I probably know him best. Because from the very beginning, Corey and we traveled the state together, campaigning for President Trump. We campaigned when people thought we were crazy. We campaigned when people thought we really were a little nuts, and when they thought that the president couldn't possibly win. But we knew better. And what I like about Corey is when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Right, Corey? Yeah. And there was a point in the campaign when they were actually going to pull out of Virginia. And they said, no, 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 we're not. Everybody was lying. And Corey went and he stood his ground. And next thing you knew, we had $2 million poured back into Virginia to help us. So that was Corey Stewart who did that. And he took the knocks, right? So did I. But we're used to that now. So Corey never gave up, never gives up on the country. He has never given up on Virginia. And that is another reason why we need to send Corey to the Senate. We need to send someone there who will support our president and his agenda. We need to remember that if we don't hold the House and the Senate, then our president is absolutely paralyzed. He will not be able to do anything. So you need to call every single friend that you have the night before and the morning of to make sure that they go to the polls. President Trump needs Corey Stewart. Virginia needs Corey Stewart. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce to you my longtime friend, Corey Stewart, the next senator from Virginia.
Well, I got some really great news, folks, and the truth is that I want to let you know that all of the polls have narrowed, and we are competitive here in Virginia. We're going to win on November 6th. We're going to win. And we're going to win because we have a great president of the United States. Isn't that right? We got a great president. Everything is happening. Great things are happening in our country. Every single day there's a new piece of great news. Unemployment is at a 65-year low for women in the United States of America. A 65-year low. It is the lowest unemployment rate ever for African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians, and it is at a 50-year low for the United States of America. We are at a record economic pace. Jobs are growing, wages are growing, and America is set, and we are now set for the largest, most sustained period of economic growth since the 1950s in the United States of America. But the president needs help. The president needs a lot of help. The president needs help to implement his agenda. And I want to let you know that we're only one vote away from building the wall on the border with Mexico. And when you elect me, we will have border security. We will build the wall on the Mexican border. We're going to do it. You know, something that Democrats and even some Republicans think. They think that all immigrants, whether you're from Vietnam or China or Pakistan or India, they think that all immigrants want illegal immigration.
No.
And they're wrong. They're wrong. Because what we know is this, that America's a great place. America's a wonderful place. It's a place of freedom. But if you want to come to America, you have to comply with the rules and you have to come through the front door. And all this talk about illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, etc., go on and on and on. They're always talking about, well, you know, what about the poor illegal aliens? What about the people who came here lawfully? What about the people who did everything right? What about the people who want to come to America that have been waiting years, if not decades, to come into this country the proper way, but they haven't been able to come? What about them? And what about American citizens? And what about the dreams of American citizens? Aren't those the dreams that we should be most concerned about? You know, there's so many families here in Virginia, and their dreams have been dashed because one of their loved ones was murdered at the hands of MS-13. And here in Fairfax County, one of the wealthiest counties in the United States of America, one of the wealthiest counties in America, the largest county in Virginia, and yet it's got one of the biggest MS-13 gang problems in America. And I want to let you know that what I did in Prince William County 10 years ago, and what the president is going to be doing, and I will be working with him, we will find MS-13 and we will eradicate MS-13 everywhere. It is time to protect our own families. It is time to protect Americans. It is time to protect our dreams. And here's something, folks. Whether you're Asian American, or Hispanic American, or African American, or whether your family came from Europe originally, let's take away the hyphen. We're all Americans, are we not? But yet, we still have these leftover laws, these leftover super liberal ideas from the 1960s, these things that keep us back. And one of these leftover laws is something called affirmative action. And you hear it and you say, affirmative action, that must be something good. It sounds so good. But you know what it means? It's the same thing as discrimination. Because what our universities are doing, and there was a rally today up at Harvard, I don't know how many of you heard about this. What Harvard University has been doing, what Yale University has been doing with Stanford and Princeton and Tufts and all the others, and here in Virginia, UVA, they're taking your tax money, and when a student wants to get into one of these competitive colleges, they don't look at your student as an individual. They ask what their race is. And if you're Asian American, if your family is from Vietnam, your family's from China, your family's from Pakistan or India or Korea, you have to score on average 280 points higher on your SATs than other students in order to get into the same college. And ladies and gentlemen, that is discrimination, and it is wrong, and it must be banned. When I'm in the United States Senate next year, and let me tell you something, it's looking increasingly likely that I will be in the United States Senate. I'll be serving in Congress with Jeff Dove right here. We're going to introduce legislation. I'm going to do it in the Senate. Jeff's going to do it in the House. Right, Jeff? And you know what this legislation is going to do? It's going to be very simple. It's going to say if you're a university, if you're a college, if you're an institution of higher learning, and you accept taxpayer money, you may not ask the race or ethnicity of any college applicant, period. Make your decision on merit. Merit alone. That's America. America's about merit. You know, what the Democrats did a couple of weeks ago, they thought that they were going to win the votes of women in this country by tearing down Brett Kavanaugh. They really believed that. They really believed that Americans would be foolish enough not to look through this circus that they held in the Senate Judiciary Committee, taking 36-year-old, unfounded, unproven, uncorroborated rumors from his high school yearbook. And they thought Americans, and they thought American women were going to turn away from the Republican Party, that they were going to come out against Brett Kavanaugh. But you know something about a deceiver? Is that at some point, people get wise and they realize that a liar is a liar, and they turn on that person, and that is the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is the party of lies, and the Democratic Party has sown its own seeds of destruction and will be defeated soundly on November 6th. They try to defeat Judge Kavanaugh, but it blew up in their face, and now we have Justice Kavanaugh. And Justice Kavanaugh is a wise man. He's a very wise man, and he's a very strong man. He was able to withstand all that, and his family, all of those lies that Democrats were throwing at him, and he made it through. Now, there's an old saying where I came from, and that is, if you shoot the bear, you better kill him.
That's right.
They shot the bear.
They missed it. They didn't kill it.
But the bear is still alive. And that bear is now on the United States Supreme Court.
Yep.
And that bear is not going to have any sympathy for the left wing. And that is why I'm convinced that we will finally and righteously overturn Roe versus Wade in the United States of America. It's the right thing to do. Our first job as public officials, whether you're a local official, a state official, or a federal official, is to protect the lives and the rights of the citizens that we serve, and that includes the born and the unborn. We have a lot to do in this country. We have a lot more to do. We're just one vote away. So much of President Trump's agenda has been stymied by one vote, the lack of one vote in the United States Senate. And that one vote will be turning, because in Virginia, instead of Tim Kaine voting in lockstep against the president, instead of Tim Kaine voting automatically against the president, I will be voting on your behalf in favor of the president's agenda in the United States of America. You know, this is all about all of us. When I go up there, I will remember all of you. And I will remember that it was not me. It was us as a team. Us as a team who got this accomplished. Who did this for America. And we in this generation will be able to look back. And we will tell future generations that we saved this nation. That we stood up. Whether we were Asian American or African American or Hispanic American or Caucasian, that we took away the hyphen and we as Americans stood up to protect and to make our country great again. That is what we're going to be able to say to this generation coming behind us. That is what we're going to do. And I just want to say, first of all, or not first of all, don't worry, I'm not just at the beginning of my speech. But I want to say I want to say that the Vietnamese community here has been very, very helpful, and I won't forget you. And I want to make a special thanks to An Tu Do and to Matt Truong. And she's not able to be with me everywhere, but she was, by the way, this is, I think, my 5th or 6th event. We started the day at the synagogue in Fairfax, and then we went off to a Hindu event, and then to a Sikh event, and then did 2 more Hindu events, and now we're here for the Vietnamese dinner. I love Fairfax County. You know why? Because we're going to win Fairfax County. That's why. We're going to win Fairfax County. We are winning in parts of Fairfax County. We have energy coming here. We have places. We're getting votes. You can feel it on the street, folks. You can feel it. People are walking away from the Democratic Party. They're coming to the side of righteousness. They're coming to the side of the Republican Party. What happened in 2016 is just the beginning of where we're going, just the beginning of all that. And I want to thank my wife, Maria, who was working. By the way, she spent the whole day at the Chinese grocery store handing out flyers. Thank you, Maria. But where we're going, folks, where we're going, because we have a president. And by the way, we have a president who's willing to stand up to tyrants. He's willing to stand up to dictatorships. He's willing to stand up to the government of Vietnam and pressure the government of Vietnam to recognize human rights in Vietnam. Don't you think it's fantastic? And I hope and I pray that once again we will have this flag flying in Vietnam. And we will. We've only begun. We've only begun to implement the agenda that was just the very first step in 2016. We've only started with the things that we can do. We are going to make this country wealthy again. We are going to put workers, blue-collar workers, back to work again. We're going to make it possible to support yourself and your families as a blue-collar workers on a single income. We are going to make this country, and we're going to bring back the values of our country again. We are going to protect the born and the unborn in this country. We are going to, in short, make America great again. Thank you all very much. And now it's my pleasure, because I have a feeling, I have a really strong feeling. By the way, I have a really funny story about Congressman Connolly. When I was implementing a tough crackdown on illegal immigration, and all the illegal aliens were moving out of Prince William County, and unfortunately they were coming into Fairfax. I do apologize. But he was chairman of the Board of Supervisors in Fairfax. I was chairman of the board in Prince William. And he came up, and he was holding his board meeting, and the superintendent of schools came up in front of the Board of Supervisors of Fairfax County and said, "Mr. Chairman, we have an issue here with our school system. We need an extra several $1 million for our ESOL program. And the students, most of them have come from Prince William County." And Jerry Connolly said, he got really angry, his face turned all red, and he said, "How do you know they come from Prince William County?" And the superintendent said, "Because, sir, we have their transcripts." So that's Jerry Connolly. That's Jerry Connolly, folks. He's a bad guy, he's a corrupt guy, and he needs to go. And he's going to be replaced by a good guy who is Jeff Dove.
So now I have to follow up Terry and Corey. Oh my God, Matt, come on, man. All right, so that's almost as bad as last year having to follow up Corey and E.W. Jackson. Oh my goodness. All right, so first of all, I'd like to say thank you to everyone for being here tonight. Thanks to Matt and Ann for setting this all up. Thanks to the Fortune Restaurant for hosting us once again with their great food. Just real quick, I want to just talk about the pro-life thing. It's probably the most important thing to me, actually. I'd say one of the biggest things is in a lot of communities, they shut down the messenger as soon as that messenger comes up, right? So as an example, I'll tell a real quick story. I was in Centerville back in March at the library collecting signatures in order to get onto the ballot. And an older African-American gentleman comes up to me and he's going to sign my petition. And he says, "Wait a second, are you the Republican candidate?" And I say, "Yeah." And he says, "Okay, I'll sign anyway." But then he says, "Why are you a Republican?" And I said, the first reason is primarily, I'm not for murdering babies. And he looks at me and he says, "Well, I'm not for murdering babies either." And I said, "Okay. I'm for limited government. I'm for that too. I'm for lower taxes. I'm for that as well." And I said, "The Democratic Party doesn't want you." And he said, "Wow, I didn't even think of it that way." And that's something that's a common thread between multiple communities. And I found that my situation right now, I've been able to get past that block that a lot of communities put up. And we have to be willing to go out and talk to people so that they understand that they do have conservative values, but we don't bring it out enough. I'll tell you another story real quick. I was at I got invited to the Gay Pride Festival last year. And I thought that was going to be the hornet's nest, lion's den. I thought people were going to be throwing batteries and things at me and cursing at me left and right. And one of the things that came out when people were talking about me, I mean, there were liberals from California, New York, all over that place. One of the things that was interesting when people came up to talk to me, they said, "Yeah, I'm pro-life." And they talked about being for lower taxes and all these things. And I kept saying, "You're not a Democrat. You are a Republican, but you just vote Democrat because that's what people want you to do." And so I think we need to make sure that we talk about these issues with people. We don't just hide. I've been going to these high schools for the past few months, and it's been interesting. There's a lot of kids that have been coming up to me saying that they don't feel comfortable coming out and talking to people about being a conservative. But because when they see us go into their schools, then they get that confidence. And they start talking to their friends, and their friends start realizing, oh, it's not a bad thing to be a conservative. What we have to do is combat the narrative that's constantly out there, and we have to be willing to work hard and do it and get the message out. One thing about Republicans is we're very shy, in a sense. We don't like to go out and boast about our accomplishments. Chairman Stewart said it perfectly when he talked about the economy and talked about all those things that have been going great. We don't do that enough, and we need to. My opponent literally talked about, we had a candidate for him recently, and I talked about the economic opportunity zones that have been put into the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that nobody really talks about. Senator Tim Scott actually put that in place to actually take capital gains money and put it into areas that are impoverished with 20% poverty rates. When I said that the economic opportunity zones existed in that Tax Cut and Jobs Act legislation, he said, I didn't see any opportunity in that legislation. I said, you must not have read it. So, there's a lot of things that exist that we need to make sure that we are telling people about and constantly talking about our accomplishments. Because what the left will constantly do is they will always try to shoot it down with some sort of lie, just like Terry spoke about earlier. So real quick, I don't want to keep everybody because it's already almost 9 o'clock, but tomorrow's the last day to register to vote. Make sure you tell everyone. We can't do this alone. Me, Corey, any of the candidates around the state, we cannot do this alone. We need your help. It takes a village to win these races. You can't just do it by yourselves. So, like I said, tomorrow's the last day to register to vote. You can get people to register online. They don't have to go in anywhere. They can do it on their phones. Get them to register to vote. Make sure we get people out of the polls. We will have rides for people. Get them out there. Drag them. I don't care how you get them to the polls. Get them to vote. Because this election is too important. It's way too important. We've already seen the plans from the left. They're already talking about impeaching Justice Kavanaugh, impeaching President Trump. And what do you think will happen to Planned Parenthood? It'll still keep getting all the money that it gets. So everyone here, please let your voices be heard on November 6th. Or if you've already voted, thank you very much for voting for me and Corey. God bless you all. God bless the Commonwealth of Virginia. God bless America. Thank you.
just want you all to know that, remember, October 30th, 7 p.m. at my house, our house, an event for Jeff Duff. 7 p.m. October 30th, and on to go, if you would kindly send everyone an email to remind them. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you for doing that. And just as a reminder, actually Suzanne Spike was here earlier tonight, and she also has an event for Corey tomorrow night. So it's right on 9 o'clock, so I want to thank you everyone for coming tonight. I want to thank the restaurants and the staff who are doing a great job. Thank you. And I would like to thank all the speakers, right, for the wonderful information. We're going to close, and we're going to have some entertainment or music or something like that. So thank you so much. Have a great evening. Take care.
Oh, thank you. Hi, how are you? Good to see you. Good to
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There we go. That's beautiful. 1, 2, 3. One more. Okay, who else? Hey, hold on. All right, Corey, you're next, okay?
Ready?
Yeah, hang on, yeah. Ready? Ready? Come on, look at here. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. Yep, there we go. 1, 2, 3. Come on again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There you go. Beautiful. Anybody else?
Thanks a lot, everybody.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Oh, one more. 1, 2, 3. You have to squeeze a little bit in there because it's... right, okay. Okay, get it.